Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Nights on the Sofa. Hope you've enjoyed your week, our 6-point winning week, which is absolutely fabulous. A bit later, well, in a few minutes, we've got Jerel Ifil on just to talk about his work that he's doing at the moment. And before we start, let's bring Vic on because I know we've got some info to give. Hello, Vic.
All right, Chris, how are you? You okay?
I'm all good, thank you. And you?
I'm all right. Just to explain, I had a power cut about 10 minutes ago, so who knows what's going to happen? Yes, so hopefully it won't occur, but if it does, Chris, you'll be able to jump in straight away. I'm sure of that.
Of course I will.
Absolutely. Some information to tell you about. In the beginning of the show, you saw some pictures. One was of Roger Smart. It's his birthday this week on March the 25th. He was born on that day in 1943. And also Ken McPherson, born March the 5th, 1927, passed away, sadly, on the 5th of February 2018. And he was the first winner of the Evening Advertiser Player of the Year way back in 1965. So well done, Ken McPherson, for that. He was part of the 62-63 squad as well, and a great player. And also our former manager, championship winning manager Richie Wellens' birthday on the 26th of March. So that's coming up this week as well. So happy birthday to Richie, to Roger, and in memory of Ken McPherson. So there we are. Some SAS news for you. We're going to Cambridge on a Thursday night. We're all delighted about that. Woohoo! That's full. SAS are. They've got no more spaces available for that, but they do have spaces available for Colchester on Friday, the 10th of April. Departing West Swindon at 1:30 and Nigel Eady County Ground at 2 p.m. Members £26, non-members £28. So 2 away games, one on a Thursday, one on a Friday. When did that happen before?
Exactly. So our three last away games is Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yes, it is 3 consecutive days. How about that?
There you go. Hopefully not. Okay, so there's a couple of events coming up. On the 19th of April, which is a Sunday morning, we've got a memorabilia sale in the Legends Lounge, and we're after sellers. So if you want a table, if you want to sell some of your programs or memorabilia, please let us know on our email address. It's £10 a table, which goes straight to Prospect. But also, we're actually looking for donations of programs and memorabilia that you want to donate for us to sell, and the money will then go to Prospect. So if you've got anything you want to get rid of, please pass it on. Again, email us or message us. We will arrange to pick it up if you can't get to the county ground or something, as long as you're not too far away, of course. Or you can bring it in on Saturday or the next home game. So that's that. And also our end of season dinner, which is on Tuesday, the 21st of April. So we've still got places available for that. So if you would like to join us in our presentation evening, go on to our website and you can book from there. Also, if you're a season ticket holder or a member of the OSC, you should have got an email last week which will ask you for your Player of the Season nomination. So if you haven't had an email, because I know we've had a bit of trouble with emails, I sent them all out Wednesday and not very many people got them. So I had to send them all out again on Thursday. So if you still haven't received one and you are a season ticket holder or a paid up member of the OSC, please let us know and we will wing you the email to you so you can put in your vote for Player of the Season. And also, I must remember, and I will do now, Cheshire Reds, big shout out to you. Double shout out because I forgot last time. And I am so sorry. So I didn't want to do it twice. So big shout out to Cheshire Reds and wonderful meeting you on Thursday. So I've got it on the brain now. Saturday at Tranmere. So
Yeah,
brilliant.
and you asked me to remind you, and I forgot to remind you. So well done.
I know.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
And
Sean says,
we had another 10-0 win for the women on Sunday. So excellent away at Worthing. So I've got a feeling it's going to go to the wire, and we're going to be the last game of the season, the championship is going to be decided on. So hopefully not, and we'll run away with it.
Sean says they better not mess around with the Grimsby game. I must be the only person on the planet that would be delighted if they move that to the Friday. The reason I have a little run around London on the Sundays, it would make life a lot easier. Yeah. James says, old Smarty, as we used to say when I was a nipper, for Roger Smart. What a great player he was. And Liam Wall says, in connection with what you said, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, then Sunday in the playoffs and Monday for the final. So there you are.
There you go.
Very good.
Excellent. And good evening, Daz St. George from Vic and I. That's one of the comments that have come in. So good evening to you, my dear. So I'm going to bring Jerel on, and I will leave you with him. So there we go. Good evening, Jerel.
Hello, Jerel. Are you listening? Are you there? Hello? Hello?
Can you hear it?
I can't hear anything from anyone.
Okay.
Well, as you can see, hello. As you can see, Jerel is with us. He's just getting connection with Jerel, wherever he might be.
We have spoken to him earlier, so it should be okay. So you might have us, Vic and I, for a bit of longer while Jerel sorts his mic out. But yes, so women's are really doing well. So it's another hat-trick for Annie, and a special mention for Elise Clayton, who got a goal on Sunday as well. So
yeah.
Can you hear us now, Jerel? No.
Dave says support of Tranmere was brilliant. It was. And Sean says, yeah, we're the same. My daughter's in the marathon, so well done to your daughter, Sean. Well done to you. Let's hope that Jerel can log off and log back on again. As an engineer once said to me at the BBC, well, it should work. And it didn't.
Well, we were speaking to him a minute ago before we went live, so it should be okay. Right, let's have another go. Let's try this one. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Excellent.
You're back with us. Right, I'm going to leave you, and I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, you.
Chris. Thanks, Chris. Great to see you, Jerel. Thank you very much indeed for being with me. It was great to meet you the other night at the museum function, and it sort of got in my head the idea of you talking about what you do now, which is an extraordinary amount of work. But I thought I'd just ask you, first of all, what it's like in a promotion run-in, because you know that. You've been on that side of the fence. What's it like, the pressures on a player?
Well, you know what's at stake. You know, there is the club success as well as player success, because all of us as players, you think the better you do, the better your career can do, the higher up you want to play, and everyone wants to play at the highest level. So when you get to a position where you have the opportunity and it's in your own hands, you don't want to let it slip. And so obviously that then creates a little bit of pressure, which you put on yourself, but there's pressure from the outside because they can see that you're doing better than most in the league as well. So there comes an expectation from both sides.
Yeah, obviously you were there when Dennis Wise started the season off, and then Paul Sturrock came in that promotion season. And then there was that game with Walsall right at the end, wasn't it? What are your memories of that?
That was a great day. Obviously because I scored, and then obviously that day we got promoted as well. So in that year, we were so galvanized as a squad and as a club. It was just had a great feel about it. So yeah, it was a really good time at that moment. I thought probably the best year I had at Swindon.
Yeah, you mentioned about some mental health problems, and this is what really kick-started what you're involved in now. Is that right?
What do you mean mental health problems? Sorry.
Well, when you're a footballer, everybody thinks everything's going to go fine, but there are times when it doesn't. I mean, how do you get through those times?
You have to learn how to manage. You have to know who you can speak to. So in terms of for myself, the hardest period was probably the relegation. And that's where you have to kind of look at yourself. There's disappointment of being relegated. There's things that don't go the way you would like to, and then you start going on a you kind of soul search, in a sense. You start thinking, this is where I could have been, and this is where I am. And then that can sometimes coincide with, you know, personal situations for yourself not going as such, because if you don't know how to manage negativity, and especially something as big as a relegation, which is a career, you know, it's football at the end of the day, so you got to still put it in perspective, but it's still a career, and it's still a lot of what my identity is in. So when someone like myself, who has been at Watford, who were a Premier League club when I first started, to then all of a sudden I'm in League Two, it's a hard pill to swallow. And so you have to start looking at why that is, and the first person you have to look at is yourself. You can't point outwards if you're not looking at yourself first and foremost. And so that was the thing I had to do, which was the hardest thing, is to accept there were things I was doing that wasn't good enough, regardless of the managers, regardless of, you know, all of the other things. The only thing you can really affect is what you do. And so that's what I had to do, and that's what helped me the second season. So the season after that was more like correcting what had gone wrong, and that's it.
I mean, if I mention Nottingham Forest, I guess that probably was about the lowest point of that season, was it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember. To be fair, a lot of stuff becomes a bit of a blur, you know, and you don't want to hold on to bad times. And so I think what you learn in football, which is a good lesson for a lot of people, is that things move fast. And so when life in general, things happen with football, you can get over them quite quickly because there's always another match, there's always something else you can do, and you ain't got time to dwell on those things. So although Nottingham Forest was a poor performance, a poor result, for me getting sent off, a culmination of frustrations of probably the season just came out in that game, I would say. But after that, it's just like, what can you do about it? You know, so although I do kind of remember it, I don't even remember too much about it. I can only imagine back then how it felt, because I don't store negative memories. I kind of have to make space for the other stuff that I'm doing.
Well, we'll get onto that in a minute. Just some comments are coming in, and there's a lot of people. Yes, the last game of the season versus Walsall worth a mention. Well, we just did that. It wasn't a great occasion. Sun was shining, lovely day, fabulous.
That was amazing.
It was. Anthony says, I thought Jerel was superb for us from his first game to his last. I remember saying to my mate, why are Watford letting us have this guy? He's solid. Well, there's just, I mean, my goodness me, there's persistence paying off eventually for Swindon in that, isn't there? And maybe we'll talk about that in a little while. But Dave says, I had the pleasure of meeting, well, me, thank you, at the Swindon Museum evening and spoken to Jerel at my work at BMW, says Dave. So comments coming in already.
Yeah.
So, you do finish football, then you have to make a move into what you do next. So what's the process?
Well, I came out of football in a sense early. So I was 32 and I decided I wasn't going to play professionally. And that was a culmination of things. One is sometimes you don't feel like you get the value that you believe you're worth. And so I felt at a time in my career when I had played as many games as I had, accumulated the kind of experience that I had got, and then I found myself like almost going on trial. Almost, it's where you feel like you're begging to prove how good you are, in a sense, and my pride of what I've done would get in the way of that. I'm like, I don't like not having control of that, because it was, some people were trying to shortchange me on wages, even though, you know, I'm an experienced player. Some people was expecting me to move to, I think there was Mansfield were in there one time, and they expected me to move all the way up to Manchester by myself. I've got a family, you know, it's like there's things that were just starting to rub me up the wrong way about my career. And then the lifestyle in general is quite difficult. it's you had to be an honourable guy in football takes a lot, and there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you have to kind of navigate, you know, because you've got a lot of power, status, money, etc. And so part of me wanted to get out because it wasn't reflecting who I wanted to be either. And so I just wanted a bit of control, to be honest. And I just thought, I'm going to get out of the game. I don't really want to keep dragging my body through, you know, hell, and then get to 40 years old and not know what I'm going to do. Because it's obviously apparent I'm not going to make it to the Premier League, you know. So there was no, you know, golden, you know, there's no treasure at the end of the rainbow for me in that sense. So I knew I was going to have to do something. And initially it was personal training. So I qualified as a personal trainer. And then one of my good friends, Danny, we were at another friend's house, and he had just started mentoring. And because he knows my values and what I stand for, he was like, I think you'd be good at mentoring. And so I thought, well, let me have a look, because I do have a passion for helping people in a sense. I used to do it with, you know, the younger players. I always felt with young players, they always needed someone to be positive and not see them as too much competition. They are competition, but you have to set out a way of dealing with the squad without being, you know, an idiot, if that makes sense. And that's a nice way of putting it. So I didn't want to be that guy. You know, if there's people coming through, you know, like Nathan Thompson and others, you have to, you know, encourage them as best way you can, regardless. You know, who was the other one that played for Reading? Sean. Ended up playing for Reading. I can't remember his name.
Sean Morrison, not
Sean Morrison.
Yeah.
You know, so there's always going to be competition in that sense, and he was obviously showing a lot of exceptional talent. You can only encourage it. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And so, for me, that's who I wanted to be in the game. But at the same time, I had to then think, how am I going to help others that don't have talent or may not have realized their talent yet? And that's where the mentoring come in. And I thought, you know what, I like this. I like trying to see if I can help young people figure out who they are, show them how valuable they are, regardless of talent, regardless of where they are in life, and help them to kind of see the light of what they can bring to the world at the same time. And that's how it started. So, you know, it started with just me and Danny doing about 4 hours a week each. And then now we've got a team of 15 mentors who mentor every day. We've got about 84 to 100 kids, depending on the time.
Wow.
A week. So yeah, we've done okay.
You mentioned actually the hidden part of football in terms of families, because you know footballers move around, and it's interesting what you said. You know, you got a family. You didn't particularly want to go all the way up to Manchester because your family, you know, you got to make sure that they stick together. I mean, that is a hidden part of football, isn't it? Where players just move away and their families are kind of expected to move around with them.
Yeah, and they take the brunt of the success of your career. So, you know, my wife and my children, and also my daughter was born in Swindon. So Christian, my son, moved from Southeast London to Watford, from Watford to Swindon, then from Swindon to Aberdeen, and I did that all in my 20s. So he has to find new friendship circles. He needs to get used to the curriculums, you know, and that's not easy for a young person. But obviously, you have to weigh up whether it's worth it or not. What can you help to ease the blow of that? Now, when you're getting paid well, you can do tutoring, you can, you know, add little extracurricular activities here and there. But if it starts to not pay off, then you've got to really think about what your priority is. And for me, my priority will always be my children. And if football doesn't pay, then I have to find a way for something else to do the same. And so I ended up with 3 jobs when I finished football, because I needed to maintain a standard of living. So the first thing was personal training, the second thing was playing semi-pro football, and then the third thing was the mentoring. And once I was able to figure out once I knew which one was going to work best, then I can drop other things off. So football was the first thing to drop off, because I was traveling, I was playing for Staines. Then I ended up playing for Supermarine. I didn't have to, but I also missed football as well. So there was a part of me that miss the game. I'm a competitor at the end of the day. So although I understood my priorities, you still miss what you've done since you were like 10 years old. And so every time I go back into it, get paid, you know, a small amount of money to travel almost all the way to Staines, come back again. And it was wrecking my body, you know, my hips, my hamstrings, everything was just taking a battering because I was working every day now. So I went from being a professional footballer where my sole aim was football to working 3 jobs. And one of them is going into a car after a hard day at work, driving all the way to Staines, getting out of the car, playing a match, driving back again. So it did eventually, I was like, there's only so much I can do with this. And so I stopped. And then I was personal training Jez Webb, the owner of Supermarine. And he was always like, it would be great for you to come to Supermarine. And I was like, and he eventually convinced me to come after retirement. And then I did that. And again, it was the same principle. I just didn't see the trade-off wasn't enough. I was missing Saturdays. My daughter was in the theatre. My son was doing athletics. And then I'm out doing something that, you know, doesn't pay as well, but also makes me miss out on family time. So then I gave it up again. And I haven't gone back since. So, yeah.
He's very persuasive, is Jez, isn't he? He's a bit like
Yeah.
This is from Daz. He says, signed in, you might know this, signed in July 2004, 70,000 after initial loans from Watford. By the time of his departure from the club in 2009, he was Swindon's longest service player. And he says to the Beast, thank you in all that you've achieved over the years, wishing you every success for the future. I mean, you were very popular with the fans. You must have known that.
Yeah, I mean, it led me to stay here. You know, my wife loved it here. I loved it here. And part and parcel of that was I felt part of Swindon at that time. You know, the support I got when I was going through probably times when I wasn't playing and stuff like that, and hearing people shout my name even though I'm on the subs bench because they're thinking, why ain't I playing? I'm thinking, why ain't I playing? So I'm like, yeah, let the manager hear that, you know, because sometimes that's what you need. You know, you need other people to kind of sway minds, especially when some people are stuck and ego driven and sometimes a bit stubborn, you know, and I don't feel if you're a good professional, you should be treated correctly. And I believe you should always start out with treating people correctly anyway. But that's not always the case in football and in life in general. So you can't have it all your own way, but there is a way you should conduct yourself, or if not, focus on yourself and conduct yourself in the best way. And I feel like between myself and the fans, they can see that the way I conducted myself was hopefully good enough for them to see.
Well, you looked as though you wanted to play for the shirt, which, as you know, for a fan, that's all you can ask for. You want a player to know that he's playing for the shirt, and I think everybody sort of agree that you did that. Now, you talked about the young people that you mentor.
Yeah.
What sort of young people are they? Take us through the process of getting them to be with you.
So we're considered an alternative provision. So we provide an alternative form of not education, but an alternative place for young people to go when education or mainstream education isn't for them. So they may be struggling in the mainstream environment. They could have maybe barriers to learning. It could be that their personal life isn't going as well as it could be. It could be that they maybe have a few barriers to learning, whether that's ADHD, autism, or a mixture of variation of things. Could be trauma. So we see a lot of children come here in various different ways. A referral form will come to us. They'll let us know what they want us to work on. If they have an education and healthcare plan, which is an EHCP, we'll get that as well to see what we can work on to help that. And then we then get obviously the relevant clearance, and then we'll start working with that young person. And then we'll work through what it is we know that is relevant to the referral form, but we may be able to go a bit deeper because we get to know them a bit more. And then we might be able to see something that's a bit more underlying. It could be that they're not sleeping well. And if they're not sleeping well, it's coming out in anger and outbursts within school. So we then say, okay, well, if sleep is the problem, let's see if we can correct the sleep. You know, it could be that they're hungry, you know, and if it's hunger, you know, can we see if we can feed them a little bit, you know, when they're with us, and see if they can go back to school, you know, at least ready to go. And then we just relay that and work with the schools or the council, whoever provides the funding. We work with them to see if we can help them, and maybe the family, if the family are willing to create a positive outcome.
You mentioned ADHD and autism. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, these were kind of things that people didn't really know an awful lot about. More and more research is going into this.
Yeah.
Are you finding that easy to deal with? How do you deal with that?
Well, funny enough, when I first started, I started off in an autistic college. That's kind of where I kind of cut my teeth initially. So although we started off in Swindon, our mentor, who was a clinical psychologist, he got us going to a college called the Priory College, which was like a college for kids that had special educational needs. And a lot of the children we were working with had autism. And then we did a few courses on that. And then we were also understudies to this clinical psychologist who would kind of help us to understand what autism is, the different ways that it manifests itself. Because like they say, it's a spectrum in a sense. And so it's so different in terms of how it can manifest itself. So if it's one child, for instance, it could be timekeeping. If you get there 1 minute too early, they don't want you there until 9 o'clock. You can't get there at 5 to 9. That throws them off. Another person, it could be a smell. Another person, it could be the demand of what it is that you put in front of them. So it's not all of the same. But I've done this about 15 years now, and a majority of the children I work with have some form of barrier. But autism seems to be a very common one for me now, because I take the more complex cases in my business. So myself and Danny and a few others, we take the more complex cases, whereas our younger mentors and our less experienced mentors will take things that are a little bit more not as much of a barrier as autism, should we say, but still barriers. But there are certain things that we will take on board because we've seen it, we've trained in it, and we have certain experiences. But yeah, it's something that is getting more known. You have to be careful not to label children too quickly, but it's important that you understand how that child is working, because labels sometimes don't help. Some don't want to be known to be having autism. Others will use it to say it's an excuse, and you have to figure out what is the fact behind the barriers to learning. And I find it really interesting. And our evidence is really good. We've got some children that are now adults who are doing the opposite of what others thought they could do, and that's because we give them the time of day, we build their value, and we don't count them out. And the reason why we don't is because we've had our own experiences, myself and Danny, of being counted out. And so as long as there's an opportunity and you can guide them, then hopefully over a long term you'll be able to see the positivities grow, and then eventually they should be able to do that by themselves. But it works in different ways. You know, some will need more help than others. I have a young man who worked with me and Danny when he was like 17. He now works for us, and we provide work experience for, well, we provide work for him. It's paid work for him, because we believe that that's our way of helping him to manage in his adult life. He's now 30. So sometimes we just provide opportunities in terms of a work environment for him, and he can now work on himself in a working environment. But he trusts us and he knows us, and so does his mum, and so therefore that's a area for him to feel like he's progressing and having purpose. Whereas others can kind of go away, and one of my guys, he's an entrepreneur. He started a car wash business, and this is a young person who never touched education from when he was 11. But with our help, he qualified as a personal trainer through us and a company called T2, which is a friend of mine who saw our vision and is is helping us to help them qualify as personal trainers, if they have that interest. But he ended up not being a personal trainer. He just started a business as a car wash, car detailer, and he's doing excellent. I have another one at BMW who is, he works on the quality assurance line, and he's a manager now. Both of those children had been written off in terms of what they thought they could do, and now they're purposeful parts of society, in the sense of they're giving back. They're not in the criminal justice system. They're actually giving back, and actually they're doing really, really well. And that's just
is that the result? I mean, is that what spurs you on? Something like that, because there's a trapdoor where a lot fall through, aren't there? Society kind of puts them to one side and moves on. But is that a result? The ones that you sort of catch before they go through the trapdoor and can get them being part of society, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, you can't. You have to be realistic. You can't save everyone, otherwise you'd feel that stress, and that would just make you unhappy. But you know that if you can get in there and be given enough time, funding, and I believe it's time, because children who have gone through a lot normally go through a lot for a long period of time, and so therefore you can't then expect a child with like 6 months of help to then all of a sudden have a turnaround. It has to be long term, even if it's just 2 hours. To know that you've got something positive to look forward to every week gives you an anchor, and okay, I'm seeing iProofit or any other of the companies that are out there. I'm going to see that person, and that person's going to help me to see the value in myself, but also challenge me. But you have to build trust before you create challenge, because otherwise they're not going to listen to you anyway. So you have to build a level of trust. And I refer back to football with most of that, because when I used to play football, if I had a teammate that I knew I trusted, he could say what he wanted to me. He could challenge me if I made a mistake or whatever it might be. But if I don't trust you, you can't tell me, because I don't know if your motive for me is correct. So if you're just shouting at me so you can make yourself look good for the manager, then me and you probably end up in an argument. If I know you mean well for me, then I'll take whatever it is you say. I'll be like, yep, sorry about that. And that's trust. I trust that person wants me to move forward and wants us to move forward as a collective. For the young people that I work with and for our team, our ethos is build trust first, because it's easier to take a hard message when it's from someone you trust. Whereas some people, they'll give you the problem but no solution. It's like, well, don't come and tell me all the problems I have if you're not going to help me solve them. And so that's what we try and do anyway, without being perfectionist, because life isn't perfection. It's just about understanding that you will make mistakes, and how do you recover from those mistakes. And I made loads. In football, that was kind of a thing that people used to say about me, isn't it? There was like, oh, he's got a mistake in him. But I know that me being on the field is better than me not being on the field. So sometimes you've got to take my mistakes so that I can save maybe 3, and that's just how you sometimes have to look at things. But for young people, I just look at it as, what can you do to help that person, and provide solutions and not just criticisms.
Yeah. Well, it goes back also to coaching in football, doesn't it? That it's okay saying to if a player does make a mistake, then you need a coach to tell you why you made that, how you made a mistake, etc., etc. I guess that's part of coaching too, isn't it?
Yeah, it goes beyond. It goes through many different areas. That's education. It can be coaching in sport. It can be relationships. No matter what it is, if you can help me see that there is a problem, but this is how I navigate through that problem and then get a better outcome, then that provides me with a way to improve and not go backwards, and maybe build better habits so that I don't keep going backwards under stress. Because a lot of the young people that you work with, is when they're in stressful situations that the negativity comes, and they don't know how to handle it. And so you've got to help them to kind of navigate that, and say, look, this is a safe space. You're safe, because a lot of it is feeling unsafe, and that's why we get outbursts. Can you help somebody to feel safe enough to be calm rather than lash out? Or to know that they have the ability to maybe do English or maths, whatever it might be. There's many different things you can kind of put that to.
Mark says, a great player for the town, says Mark. And then he says, hats off to you for helping young people with compact needs. My daughter needed help. A school ended up going to college, getting a diploma, now qualifying as a dental, I guess, dentist. It doesn't actually say, but she was labelled at school, but proved them wrong. As a dad, I'm so proud of what she's achieved. Now she loves learning. I mean,
Brilliant.
yeah, I mean, that says it all, really. And I'm just thinking, you must be quite patient as well. It's not a case of, it's not a 5-minute job, this, is it? It's a lot of work goes into this.
No, you do have to have patience, and you can't take it personal. You will see a lot. Some kids will say a lot, and you have to be willing to wear many different masks, because you can't just be one way with young people. You've got to be willing to kind of make a fool of yourself at times, pull some funny faces, say some funny things, just to break ice, just to show them that you're willing to look a bit silly so that they can maybe smile or see the benefit of something. So we have to be the ones that adapt. The child is not the one that's going to adapt to us. We have to adapt to them. And so the patience of, if someone's overly quiet, there's a reason why they're quiet.
Yeah.
If they're loud or maybe boisterous, there's a reason for that as well. If they have meltdowns, there's a reason for that. And the first thing, again, you have to do is, if something happens like that on your watch, is why did that happen, and what could you have done first before you start looking at the young person? Because a lot of times there's labels that the child's naughty. There's a lot of judgment on children. And because some people go through a lot with that child, they either lose patience, they lose faith, they're more glass half empty. And that's it. It's understandable, but it's also not going to help. And so again, I go back to football. So a lot of what I do, I go back to football. If I lose a football match, if I make a mistake in a football match, I don't have time to wallow. I don't have time to tell myself I'm rubbish. I have to think, how am I going to do this? Otherwise, it's going to spiral into the next game and into the next game. And that's what happened in our relegation battle. It was a continuation of negativity. In our promotion battle, it was a continuation of positivity. Even if we lost, it didn't matter. Next game, the feeling was different. So I can take both of those as examples of where they end up, and then use those in life.
Yeah. Mark's clarified his daughter's went on to be a dental nurse, which is great. Fantastic. Well, Mark, and, congratulations to your daughter.
Yeah.
Funding. Now, obviously, this is vital work. I'm guessing you need funding from various sources. How do you fund this?
So we're a limited company. We started privately because we didn't want to be at the mercy of, being a charity and then having to keep going out for funding. We thought, what, let's be good at what we do. And if we're good, people will use us. If we're not, they won't. And, like I said, we started with 4 hours each, and now we're at 15 mentors. We do have our business developer and our admin staff as well. So we've built up through getting funding from varying places. So it would be Swindon Borough Council, Wiltshire County Council, because we're alternative provisions for both of them. And then it will be the schools within the councils. So they have their budgets for their children. So we're on a register of approved providers, where they come, and their due diligence is quite deep. But obviously we've got onto their register. And that's because our team does very well. Our business developer, Claire and Jan and Tracy, they're very good at keeping us, ahead of policy as well. So we're always, trying to stay one step ahead. So we emulate what the schools need. And then we are quite professional in our own approach as well. So we try and do things in a way where we're ahead of the curve rather than catching up with it. Especially when you're working with young people, you don't want to make silly mistakes, because that one, it can be quite detrimental to your business anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So the funding comes from varying different streams. Could be from, we've done a couple of projects with the Police and Crime Commission, which have gone into the antisocial behaviour area. working in specific areas in Swindon. So we've done some outreach. We've also had children that are, possibly at risk of antisocial behaviour at certain times, and they'll come to us and they'll stay with us for the evening. But it depends again on the budgets. I believe that should really happen more often than not, but I don't hold the purse string, so that's something that we would petition for if there was funding there. But yeah, it comes from a variation of places. But like I say, as long as we're good enough, then we deserve to be funded if, for the children that we work with. So we just make sure we try and, work with integrity and with a quality that makes them come back.
Sure. Yeah. This is from Tim. He says, such an interesting chat with Jerel. Speaks so well, so grounded, and making such a difference and changing lives. Well done, Jerel. I mean,
Thank you.
it's an extraordinary thing that you do. And many people run away with the idea, in the old days, footballers used to go off and run pubs and all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, you mentioned the Premier League, when players, when they finish and are on hundreds of thousands a week, maybe finding something after isn't always essential. But what is the passion in this for you? Because you've obviously displayed that you want to make a difference to young people's lives, and it's very easy to write young people off, isn't it? Say, young people are terrible and blah blah blah, get rid of them.
Yeah.
How passionate are you about this? I sense very passionate.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm from an impoverished area myself. I've had to deal with stereotypes, so whether that's because of the color of my skin, whether that's because I was a footballer, whether it's because of the look on my face, it just depends. And so what I didn't like is, when I was growing up, is feeling like I wasn't being given a fair crack of the whip.
Yeah.
And I felt that quite a lot through my career as well. Even at Swindon Town, when, certain managers came in, it just felt like I was always pushed to one side, and then I'd have to fight my way back into the team. And I don't mind doing that, but at the same time, you want to feel like you have value. Now, there's many people out there that don't have value. I'm lucky that I managed to play football. So even though it was tough, I've still been able to have a good lifestyle. I'm very blessed. So there's people out there that don't even know that exists. That there's another side to life. All they see is the grind, day in and day out, and some of it's quite bad. If I can't go into too many details, but it's quite bad. It goes into many different habits and things like that. And then when you throw children into the mix, you've got adults that have children, and the adults haven't quite dealt with themselves yet, but they're having children, and then the children become the victims of that situation. So for me, I've seen that in many different ways. I've seen footballers who throw away things because their upbringing hasn't been great, whether that be money, whether that be their family, whether their integrity just isn't intact. And fighting for that in my career, like trying to do that in my career, has had an impact, because trying to do something with integrity when there's so much power like around you, sometimes that overshadows what the boys want to do, what everyone wants to do, that is behind closed doors. And when someone says, actually, I don't want to do that, that can cause friction, because people want to do certain things. And so for me, it's like, well, when I finish, I have total control of what I want to do, right? And so if I want to help people and I want to run my life in a certain way, yes, I'm saying it, and 80% of the time I'm going to have to do that, because if I'm saying that this is how it should be, then I'm going to have to demonstrate that with action. I can't say I'm a professional footballer and then act like an amateur footballer eating, chips every day and, fried chicken. When you see us, you hope that we emulate what it is that we say we are by label. Then, for me, if I'm a mentor to children, then I have to emulate that so that they can see a true example of what I'm speaking about. I can't say to you, don't smoke, and then I'm smoking. Yeah. I can't say to you, don't drink, and I excessively drink. It's all about balance and helping children understand what balance is, and what excessiveness can do, and what a lack of control can do. So a lack of control can be dangerous. And a lot of children, you see it more now in the news, there's a lot of people that have no control. And so for me, it would be great if more people had control, but I can't go and point the finger if I'm not doing what I need to do and Danny's not doing what he needs to do. And it's not perfection, but it's an understanding that that's there and you can make mistakes, but try not to make terrible mistakes, which means it's harder to come back from. And that's kind of the ethos I've tried to go through my life, is try not to make terrible mistakes which affect trust and the safety of those that you care about. And you try that, and by the grace of God, I've been able to do so. But it's hard work, and it's just something that if you say you're going to do it, you try your best. But you can't judge. You just do what you need to do. So yeah.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I mean, what is your average day? Do you have an average day, or because I remember at the museum meeting, you'd just been down Salisbury way, I think, and you'd just come back from Salisbury, and so what is an average day? So
for me, as the director of the company, it's slightly different because I've got things that I need to do as a director as well as a mentor. So I take the more complex cases, which are children that maybe are more homebound. So on a Monday is more my kind of free day to do meetings with staff, catch up with them. I have one young person that I mentor. Then Tuesday, I'm normally mentoring in area. Wednesday, I'm out of area. I'm in Trowbridge and I'm in Chippenham. Thursday, I go to Salisbury and then bring a young person back here. And then I take him back to Salisbury and then come back again. And then Friday, I'm in Chippenham and Trowbridge. And with those young people there, again, they don't get out much. So I might take them to Bristol or Bath and they just spend the day with me. And I'm just trying to help them to either socialize or at least work on some of the barriers that they have. But a lot of my mentors have 3 children a day, and they do that 5 days a week.
So is that in classroom, if I might use that phrase? Is that where they're based? They're based in the place that you have your business, or do they get out and about as well?
It depends on the young person. So we have our HQ, which is where we are now. So this is my HQ. So this is the upstairs. So this is where we meet the young people. We pick them up. They come here. We have a bit of a chat, and we talk about the day. Then downstairs we have the multi-sports area and the gym, which is it's a big commercial gym. And we have a sensory room for children with sensory needs, and then we have a music studio. So a lot of our mentoring that's local can be done here, but we'll use the parks. Anything that we've risk assessed to use, we'll use. Sometimes children just want to go for a drive,
sure,
and you can go for a drive with that young person. As long as we're getting something out of it in terms of what can we say that we're imparting into that young person, that's what we have to do. But it depends on the young person. They could come in a really foul mood. They maybe had an argument with somebody, and you go, okay, this is now a time to de-stress. And so we're just there for them to de-stress. And other times we need to work on something. We work on a curriculum, which is PSHE based. So we have a weekly theme, and we'll work on those themes. And then if there's anything else we can help with, we'll help with. There's nothing really we don't do, but we just don't prescribe to providing education, because then that puts us in a scheme of needing to be Ofsted registered and stuff like that, which then ties you into not being flexible.
It's an incredible amount of work that you do, and full of admiration for you in terms of trying to get young people. I mean, it's awful really, because I think most of us know people, know children who have autism or ADHD. And when I was at school in the dusty old days of the last century, as you said earlier, they'd just be treated as a naughty child, and said, oh, he just misbehaves and does all this nonsense, and pushed aside. Where do you think we can go with that research in the future? How much understanding will there be, do you think?
I think it's continuous. It's going to be continuous research coming out. So hopefully they'll get to a point where diagnoses are done quicker, so that their understanding is quick. Because a lot of the fallout is that what you just said, is that even up until now, there are children that are labeled as naughty children because they haven't got a diagnosis yet. And so therefore, sometimes that label, again, if you label a child, sometimes they will take that label and go, and they'll run with it. Okay, I'm the naughty kid. You know, it's important not to put that on them. Or if you are going to label them the good kid, or the kid that needs something like this, and word it in a way that frames it to a positive end rather than a negative one. You know, because what you say around children sinks in, you know, even what they don't hear. So sometimes if they hear a parent talking to somebody else going, oh, she'll never listen to this and she'll never listen to that, or he'll never do this and he'll never do that, they're listening, and you're slowly just working on their mind to go, yeah, maybe I won't do that, you know. And that's the label, without even realizing the label is being put on. So, you know, when your children are in earshot, be careful what you say, because sometimes if it's negative, they will take it on. And so, you know, I'm very kind of for positive reinforcement, you know, letting people know that they're valuable, you know, because that's the hardest thing to know about yourself, is how valuable you are. You know, this world is consistently kind of throwing messages at you about what you should be, what you shouldn't be. If you don't look like this, then you're not going to do this. If you don't earn this amount, then you're not good enough. As soon as you start putting those labels on, you know, what you need to be when you get to a certain age, the pressure can sometimes make people buckle, and then that then kind of pushes you to kind of different areas like, you know, drugs, alcohol, sex, all of those type of things, because they're instant gratification. And so because you think if you can't work to get to that point, then I'm just going to satisfy myself in the short term.
Yeah.
And children will do that, and they'll build habits into adulthood, which then become harder to break. So it's important for us to understand what we can do to help people, and it's all about positivity, really.
Adrian's messaged. He says, "Thank you, Jerel, for your services to our great club." It's football questions. This. So he says, "Do you think VAR is a good thing or a bad thing? We've had bad refs over the years, but you can't beat celebrating a goal rather than waiting minutes for the outcome. And do you know what handball is? I did, but I haven't got a clue now. I mean." Would you, if you were playing now, would you have any idea what handball is?
Well, I'm glad I retired when I did, because the rules were changing consistently to favour attacking football. You know, they wanted to make it faster. They wanted it to be more goals, and you can see over the years, the more goals are being scored, there is a lot more happening. But VAR in itself, in the day and age that we live in, where everyone wants things quickly, it just slows things down. And so I don't think it's built for the day and age we live in, because it's too slow. You know, and so therefore I don't think VAR is a good idea for the flow of the game. I think it's good if it can be done quicker, then yes, it makes sense. But then what's the point if you have to, you know, you have to celebrate a goal, then wait 2 minutes and then not celebrate a goal, or you have to finish the whole move first for someone to say it was offside. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
But if they can get the technology right, and I suppose this is the beginning, then it can have a place. But I think we're in the kind of what I would consider the dark ages of technology being brought into football. Eventually it will become something better, I hope.
And as a defender, you've had to have both hands tied behind your back in case your handball or it touches some part of your arm, or, I mean, would you have a clue what it is?
Well, you know, everyone's now just there like that, isn't it? It's just ridiculous. And how is that functional for a defender to defend like that? It makes no sense. So again, it's at a negative for the defender, but at a positive for the striker. You know, even things like simulation. You know, back when I was playing, if you simulated, that was seen as dirty. You know, now people practice simulation so that it can be done better. You know, leaving your foot there at the right time and all of this kind of stuff. I genuinely couldn't, because I believe it adds a lack of integrity to the game.
Yeah,
so,
I
you know,
understand
simulation is just basically lying to win.
Yeah.
And I get it. There's a lot of competition, but as soon as you take away integrity from the game, so you're basically trying to deceive the referee to get the upper hand. How is that then good for children to understand? Well, actually, it's okay to lie in football. then what are you teaching them about outside of football? I think it then creates crossed messages. It's okay to lie here. And so it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, do you, with the children that you have, do you, being an ex-footballer, do they relate to that? Does that help?
I think that's why I believe there's power in people that have been successful mentoring children in some way, shape, or form, because children are initially superficial, so they want to see what you're about. And so what's good when I started is that was kind of my hook in. It's like, oh, he's an ex-professional footballer. People knew who I was at the time. The older you get, the less relevant it becomes, because people don't remember what you do 20 years ago. They're like, yeah, we don't care. But what it does do is it allows them to know there's someone that went and did something which would be considered exceptional, and now is back here trying to help you. And there's a level of authenticity that comes with that when the business has been started by a peak physique body model and an ex-professional footballer. And so that's kind of our unique element. But we see the power in people that have done well for themselves and mentoring those who want to do well but don't know how. There's many different ways that you can do it, but I believe for our angle, it helps the young people to know that there's someone at the helm who's done something and is now doing something for the community. So that's one of our hooks, and obviously then our experience and our ethos and our methods are the other aspect.
Peter says, hi Jerel, are you enjoying the push for promotion this season? Are you confident we will go up? Well, hey, any Swindon fan is never confident about anything. You will know that over the years. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously 2 away wins in a week has helped, so that's a big help.
Yeah, no, that's been a big help. And obviously at that time when I was speaking to Billy at the museum, I was just getting a bit of insight into it, and it's just about staying consistent, really. Obviously it's a bit, when you get to the tighter ends of the seasons, when there's less games around, it becomes, obviously there's more pressure. But with Holloway at the helm, I think he's got enough experience to also help the players, because he's seen this before. He knows what he's doing. It's similar to Paul Sturrock. He had seen it before. So although you may have a few tighter moments, hopefully the experience of the manager can be pushed on to the players so that they can just do what they need to do. So I believe they can do it. I haven't watched the game, but I listen and read from afar, and I think they should be able to, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, well, we all hope they do. You've mentioned your family many times, and boy, oh boy, you've got a talented family, haven't you? You must be very proud of them. I mean, it's just a fantastic thing.
Yeah, I'm very proud of my kids. My son works with me, and he also does real estate for a company in Dubai. And so he's just cutting his teeth in 2 different environments. He's a good lad, which is why I have him here mentoring young people. And then my daughter's obviously in the West End. She did her little run on Britain's Got Talent when she was 12. She's now 18, going on 19. And she's just finished a stint in the West End doing a show called Just for One Day, which was about Live Aid and how it came about. And so she was doing 8 shows a week as a lead character.
Wow.
At 17 years old. So she's done exceptional, and my wife has had to cart her to and from London twice a week for the last year, and stay in London for most of that time. So I only used to see them in the last year, just before February. For a year, I saw them on a Saturday night. They'll get home just after 12 a.m. We'd spend Sunday together, and then my daughter would go to London by train from Swindon, and then my wife would then finish work from home and then drive to London and pick her up after the show finished. So they were working hard, put it that way. And then just me and Christian were just at home, just living the boys' life,
watching Sky TV and football.
That's
Brilliant.
it.
Paul says, do you think defenders should be punished more for grabbing players from corners and set pieces? Half the time, they're not even looking at the ball and nothing is done. It's unreal, to be fair, in my opinion. I'm not suggesting you ever grabbed a player at a corner or anything like that. But it does seem to be that there seems to be a lot more shirt pulling and stuff going on these days. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, do you know what? I think it's part and parcel of the game. Everyone's jostling for position. If it's so blatant that you can see it, then something should be done about it. But you can't really get away from it because it's not just the defenders. The strikers are pulling you as well. So they're trying to keep you in a position. So I know if I'm in the box, someone will pin me down. And if they've pinned me down, I don't want them touching me. I need to be able to move. But they're purposely they'll be behind you and trying to hold you down a little bit. And you're like, get off me. And that when you're heightened in terms of your emotions, sometimes you can push them, pull them, move them out the way. It is what it is, but it's part of the game. I don't think you should get overly punished for it. But if it's, if it's obvious, then yes.
Jerel, it's been an absolute honour talking to you. I'm full of admiration for what you do. Goodness me, what is the success for you? If you had one child, what is it success? To change their life completely, to make them happier? I mean, I don't know. What is the right thing to say?
It's giving them the tools to understand life is not easy. Because if you say about being happier, for instance, happiness is a circumstance.
Yeah.
You can't be happy all the time. So, there's no point looking for happiness all the time. Otherwise, you'll be depressed when you don't have it.
Yeah.
So it's letting them know it's okay to go to and fro through emotions. It's okay. It's okay that life doesn't always go the way you would like it in the upward trajectory. And it's unrealistic to expect it to have that.
Yeah, sure.
But with that expectation, if you're able to then say, well, actually, I'm able to manage my life now. I don't have fights in the street. I'm not getting in trouble with the law. And I can earn money for myself and I have purpose. That's a success for us. And sometimes the child is more complex and then they become a more complex adult. So maybe just being able to have a purpose in a sense, because some will always need help. So it depends on the young person and where they're starting and where they're finishing. So, success depends on the individual and also how long you have them. So if I don't have the child until adulthood, but I'm able to get them from not going to school at all and being at home and not being able to leave their mum's side to then now they're going to school, they're trying variations of provisions and they are looking to have a direction, then that's a success for that moment, and so I'm hoping and then that will then turn into something more. But I had a young man say hello to me the other day who I mentored about 4 years ago and along with another couple of mentors. And he said he was a shop fitter now, and he said, well, I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for iProof. So that's a success. The guy that's at BMW who was, going the very wrong way in terms of youth justice, who is now a quality assurance manager, earning, well above the average wage, that's a success. But not just that, he now gets on really well with his mum and his dad, and they have a better relationship as a family. That's important as well. So we also talk about respect for your parents and, treating people correctly. So it's not all about just yourself. It's can you mend some of those relationships if they're a bit fractured, and if we can help young people have better relationships, then great. But, there's a lot in terms of that. And that it kind of led me to the project. I've got a new course that I've designed for adults, which is called the Mirror Formula. And I've designed it and created it from scratch, but it's for adults because I see that children need adults that reflect better. So I created the Mirror Formula, which is an online course, and it's about understanding, reflecting on yourself. So I've used the spelling of mirror as my course modules. So I've got M for myself, I for inconsistencies, which is what is the difference between what you say you want and your actions. Then why is it that those things are happening? So you need R for reflection. You reflect on why you're inconsistent. Then you take the second R and you reframe. So you got to take your reflection and reframe it. Once you know you're going to reframe it, you take ownership, which is what are you going to do next to make sure you don't slip back into your old habits. And once you've taken ownership, you go to R, which is rebuild. Now that framework is something that I've now designed and I've put out onto an online platform to sell, because that's for me as it's another project for me, but it's based on seeing where adults need also help, because I had to do the same. I had to look at myself. I had to see my inconsistencies. I had to reflect on them, reframe, take ownership, and rebuild. And so, me doing that and seeing where I've managed to kind of improve my probabilities in life is what I believe can also help others. So that's my new project on top of my mentoring, and I do personal training as well.
So do you do that of a weekend kind of thing? I mean, it always baffles me. You know, you talk to people from the community foundation; they have a 48-hour day. I mean, it seems to me you're getting close to that. I mean, if people want to find out more about your company and indeed what you've just mentioned, where should they go? Is there a website?
So the company is iProofit for mentoring. So that's iProofit.com. Oh no, .co.uk. And so you'll see everything we do on there. For my coursework, I have my own personal website, which is Jerel Ifil at kajabi.com, which is the course thing that it's on. But if you type in my name, it comes up. And that's I'm starting to make variations of courses. So I want to do stuff for parents. I want to do stuff for, high net worth individuals. There's all these variations of things that I want to do because I've seen many things in my life, especially, playing football and then being a father and being a dad, being a husband, mentoring children, personal training, and lifestyle coaching adults. I've seen a lot in about 15 years of retiring, as well as what I saw in my career. There's a lot that you take in, and it's how can I utilize it for myself, because obviously I'm still trying to earn a living, but at the same time, how can I help people at the same time? And that's what it is. So, but you do it humbly and without judgment.
Well, Jerel, thank you so much for joining us. And
well, thank you. It's been a great chat.
Well, I'm going to let you go home in a minute because I guess you go home now.
Yeah, my wife would be wondering where I am.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much. I mean, thank you not only for what you're doing now, but what you did as a player as well. And I think from what you've seen or heard tonight, I guess you have got a feeling of what Swindon fans felt about you when you were playing for them. So
always appreciated. Always appreciate. Yeah. Thank you for bringing me on. And that's why I'm still in Swindon now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you are, Chris. Full of admiration. It's an extraordinary thing he's doing, and all power to his collective elbows. That's all I can say.
No, it was so interesting. I used to do mentoring for young offenders many years ago, and to how it's come on now, it's amazing to hear, because we had none of the sort of the backup that you've obviously got, and how the diagnosis of things, we had none of that in those days. So it's fabulous. But so thank you very much. Thank you. Please go home now.
Well, it's not just me, it's my team as well. So I've got a great team. So I'm very appreciative of what we have as a team. I just named my mentor of the term. Her name's Nikki. So yeah, we do what we can as a team, because you're never just a one-man band.
Exactly. But
well, Rob says speaks so well and gives so much back. So there you go. I think that's a general theme throughout the course of the evening. Jerel, thank you very much.
Thank you very much
for speaking to me.
No problem.
All right, you guys take care.
Keep in touch.
All right. See you later.
All right. Good night, Jerel. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Brilliant. Bye-bye. So Vic and I will be back next Monday, which we will do the review of the we're playing Fleetwood. We'll be Fleetwood game. And we will see you then. So have a good week, and we'll see you Saturday if you're at the game, or we'll see you Monday when we're back on here.
Yeah, don't
Okay,
forget Fools Rush In. Fools Rush In are on at 9 o'clock. So if you want some
They
more
are.
swimming content, yeah. So there we are.
There you
Thanks,
go.
Chris. Thank
Okay,
you.
so take care and see you soon. Bye.